What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 63. My name is Victor Vasquez. Thank you so much for listening to another episode where we just sit down, discuss a new movie that I got to check out in theaters, give you my pros and cons, and really kind of dive into whether after one viewing, is it a timeless movie? Can I rewatch it over and over again? So on this week's episode, we're going to be covering a huge, enormous movie, and that is Godzilla, King Kong, A New Empire. That is right. And for the third week in a row, or I guess third episode in a row, I am actually checking out a movie that is a sequel, and I have not seen the other films in that franchise. So this is another one. I know that Godzilla versus King Kong came out, I believe, in 2021. Did not care to check it out. It was just not my thing. I knew that the whole premise was just these two monsters joining together. They try to set up movies like, I think, Skull Island or Godzilla King of the Monsters, and then they eventually brought this back, kind of using that same formula that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done, where they kind of show different characters and then eventually bring them together for one ensemble movie. So the Monsterverse, as they like to call it here, is what they've been doing in this specific franchise. And so once again, it really wasn't my thing when I kind of started checking out and diving into movies. And then, all of a sudden I was like, you know what? This one looks ridiculous. It looks crazy. It looks like a lot of fun. So why not go ahead and check it out? So what I did was I actually watched Godzilla versus King Kong. And I went in again with the mentality of, well, I don't know really what to expect. I mean, if it's getting a sequel, there has to be some good about it, or some people really enjoyed it and went to go see it in theaters. And I did, and I was actually pretty surprised. I thought it was going to be pretty terrible. It wasn't terrible or bad. It was a good movie, not anything that I would rewatch. The first one was not timeless for me, but I definitely could see where the enjoyment is for a lot of people that went to go watch it in theaters. This is definitely one of those types of movies where, again, you just kind of don't have to think too much. The story is pretty simple and straightforward, and if there is a story at all, and really the main attraction is seeing these monsters collide, and that's kind of what brings a lot of people to the seats to watch these in the theaters. So that's what I ended up doing before watching Godzilla, King Kong, A New Empire. I watched the first one, thought it was pretty good, and now I jumped in and I got a chance to see it on opening night, and really want to just kind of highlight some of my thoughts and kind of give you, again, what I really thought about this movie. So let's go ahead and dive in. Overall, I thought this was a fun experience. It was definitely a packed theater. As you could tell that a lot of people were super excited to watch it. It by no means was a great movie, at least to me. Again, I'm just going to give you my honest perspective of watching it, but it was a fun experience. I had a lot of hilarious moments that I enjoyed and different scenes that I just kind of wasn't expecting. And you could tell that everybody else in the theater was having a great time watching this movie. Again, I think it really, what makes it work so well is I think it knows what it is as a movie. It's not meant to be a movie that's going to win any awards. It's not meant to be a movie that's going to shock you and like really kind of show you some type of a narrative that blows you away. It's really just there to show you, hey, here, look at these cool visuals. Look at these two monsters on the screen and watch them duke it out. And that's really, again, it knows itself very well. This one is directed by Adam Wingard. Again, he was able to kind of develop a really, again, fun and enjoyable experience. A lot of crazy types of fight scenes occur, great action sequences between Kong and Godzilla and a different villain as well. But it's just a very fun experience to go to the theaters. Again, it's just, it has a lot of different types of explosions, a lot of destruction, sometimes, again, very exaggerated and over the top type of destruction that just kind of takes you out of it. But once again, you almost got to put yourself in that mindset. You got to just, not think, just enjoy what you're watching. This is not meant to change anything in regards to, or even compare itself to other great movies like Dune or like The Dark Knight. That's not really what it's going for. It's just trying to put on a show. It's trying to show an exaggerated world where monsters exist with humans. So again, really crazy stuff that ended up going on, but I had fun. It was a good experience. Just to kind of break down what happened in the movie, just a quick little summary. What ends up happening is that Kong and Godzilla are separated. As they kind of explained in the first movie, both of these titans are not meant to live in one specific space together, because if not, they're basically just going to try to fight and duke it out and see who comes out on top. So what ends up happening is that Kong now lives in Hollow Earth. For those of you who did not watch the first movie, Hollow Earth is actually a place right in the center of the Earth. Instead of there being a core, there's basically another dimension or planet or whatever you want to call it. But it's basically a separate world from Earth, and it's at the core of this planet. And Kong basically lives down there. That is his new home. And Godzilla actually lives on Earth. He basically sleeps in the Colosseum. So that kind of shows you the craziness of what this kind of world is revolving around. But what ends up happening is Kong is trying to find a home, and he's trying to find other species like himself in Hollow Earth. So he goes out, he tries to find again, any type of species like an ape that looks like him, and he's able to find some, and he finds a tribe, but this tribe is actually controlled by a more evil and sinister type of a titan. This titan, again, it actually controls and monitors this group of apes, and Scar King, they call him. That's where King Kong ends up finding this new tribe, and he ends up meeting up and fighting against Scar King. And he finds out that, again, he actually has a secret weapon that he has under his control. And what he's able to do is actually use this secret weapon, which is Shimo, which is almost like a fire-breathing or ice-breathing dragon. And they basically control it in order to force the apes to do whatever Scar King wants it to do. As this is happening for King Kong, there's also a separate little subplot where there's actually almost like a message that's being sent out from Hollow Earth. It's like a specific beat that is happening, and this beat is basically a call for help. And it's actually coming from Hollow Earth, and we end up finding out that this specific message is actually being sent by the Ewe Tribe. Now, this Ewe Tribe was actually the tribe that Gia, the character in this film, that's where she actually came from. She was a part of the Ewe Tribe, and they highlighted this in the first movie. And Gia, played by Kaylee Hoddle, she actually is basically the secret to this message. Again, the Ewe Tribe is needing help. They want Gia to actually come to Hollow Earth, and they need help from Godzilla as well. And so it all kind of comes to play at the third act of the movie. And what ends up happening is basically Godzilla ends up assisting King Kong in order to fight the Scar King and Shimo. And you just get a epic, tag team. You get 2-on-2. You have Scar King and Shimo facing off King Kong and Godzilla, and all hell breaks loose. They start fighting in Hollow Earth, and as you would expect, they eventually make it to Earth, and they end up fighting in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and they cause havoc and disruption. But at the end of the day, King Kong and Godzilla are able to team up and assist each other to knock out and destroy the Scar King. Again, craziness, very simple, straightforward. I'm not going to cover all the little details that came out of the movie, but hopefully that kind of gives you a good perspective as to how the movie plays out as well. Now, let's go ahead and jump into some of my pros about the movie, and then we'll kind of jump into some of the cons that I have. First pro, I gotta say, is that the movie's actually really funny. I was not expecting the movie to actually have hilarious parts. Again, the first film that I saw, Godzilla vs. King Kong, that came out in 2021, it had some funny parts, but wasn't that much of a movie that was kind of meant to have these funny and very well delivered lines. In this movie, Godzilla and King Kong, some of the faces that they make are just like hilarious. You just see them kind of like either like make these kind of, what? Like, what are you talking about? Or like you even see King Kong trying to put up his hands and trying to talk to Godzilla, kind of like, hey, let's not fight. And it's just a lot of just hilarious stuff ends up coming out in this movie that, again, I was not expecting. And again, just a pro for me. It's actually a funny movie. I don't know if the director intended it to be that way, but it was funny to me, and a lot of other people in the theaters were laughing as well. Second pro that I have about this movie is I really enjoyed Godzilla and his part to play in this. Again, he is a beast in this movie. What he is doing is actually taking out various titans. So what they reveal in this movie is that there are not only Godzilla and King Kong, they're not the only titans. No, there are various titans around the world, and Godzilla actually is able to track them down. And what he's doing is actually finding energy sources in order to prepare for the third act and the final battle. And so what he does is that he actually faces off against this dragon named Tiamat, and he's able to actually take the radiation off of Tiamat and kill that specific titan, and then he absorbs it in order to turn into a different version or almost a different powered Godzilla. He even goes to nuclear power plants and absorbs all the nuclear energy in order to, again, prepare for this final battle against Scar King. But again, he didn't even know that. It wasn't revealed until the third act that he knew, okay, this is the reason why Godzilla is absorbing all this power. And so I really like that. Again, Godzilla is just, nobody's going to be able to stop him. Not even King Kong can stop him. I'm Team Godzilla. If anybody's, keeping score of which team is which, I am Team Godzilla. And I really enjoyed him kind of just wreaking havoc and killing off all these different titans and just taking all the energy, taking all the power, just so he become even more indestructible as well. Last but not least, I really enjoyed the interactions of Kong and some of the other apes that come out of the movie. There's actually a little baby kind of King Kong, a little ape. Again, the interactions that they have. And what's so cool about it is, again, there's no dialogue. There's no sign language between the apes. It's just grunts, noises, and it just makes it so funny, but also it makes it really cool that, again, you don't really have to have dialogue to have these two different types of characters or animals or whatever they are to have a relationship and a connection. So again, I really enjoyed the way that they're able to kind of show Kong and show him, again, being a real leader or being a real good creature and a good ape when he gets to meet this new tribe. So really good stuff. I enjoyed those interactions in the movie. Moving over to some of the cons that I had about this movie, I gotta say, again, just personal nitpick, there's a couple of music choices for certain scenes that just didn't really hit for me. There's a couple ones that they kind of introduce as the character Trapper ends up being and doing different types of actions in the movie. Trapper, played by Dan Stevens. Again, he's like the veterinarian of these titans. He actually replaces one of the tooths of King Kong. It actually gives him a mechanical arm eventually after his arm gets messed up. So a lot of ridiculous stuff, but going back to the con, there was just some music choices that, again, just didn't really fit with the movie. I wish it would have just been like, more of like a musical score and just kind of something very triumphant. Instead, they kind of insert these kind of musical choices of like real music from reality. And I just think it didn't really fit with what the movie was doing. But that's just something of a con that I have. Second con that I would kind of throw out there is what Dr. Eileen Andrews, who is, again, one of the main protagonists in this movie. She's actually the mother of Gia. And Dr. Eileen Andrews is played by Rebecca Hall. I actually felt like it was a little bit of a nitpick on my side. I feel like in the story, she has to actually make a choice about letting her daughter, Gia, go with the people of the Ewe Tribe in order to help them fulfill a prophecy. And, there's a decision where basically she has to understand that Gia is actually the secret key to unlocking another Titan. What I actually felt like went by too fast was, I think Dr. Eileen Andrews, her character just really let Gia just go automatically. Like, as soon as she read the prophecy, I thought there was going to be a more conflict about, like, no, I'm not going to let my daughter go. I don't want to risk her losing her life. Instead, she's like, well, this must be done, I guess. This has to happen, right? She's the key. And so I felt like it was done way too quickly. Again, it's only a 2-hour movie, so I completely understand them kind of cutting a couple of corners just to get the story moving. But I kind of wish there was a little bit more conflict of maybe, in that situation, Dr. Eileen Andrews maybe resisting a little bit, not wanting Gia to go, not wanting her daughter to actually risk her life because you don't know if she's going to survive or not, and just going to have that little bit of tension and then eventually accept it. But that didn't happen in the end of the day. Also, my third con, and the last one that I have, is I didn't really understand the specific piece that happened in the third act of the movie during the final battle. The Ewe Tribe ends up using this kind of some type of a tactic where they're able to invert gravity. It probably went right by me, but I did not understand the purpose of the gravity shift. I don't know if that was supposed to benefit Kong or if that was supposed to benefit Godzilla, but there's end up being like a gravity shift where first you're fighting with gravity, and then all of a sudden the gravity gets inverted and all the monsters end up going and fighting in the opposite direction. It was just kind of weird. Again, I know that it was mostly done to make that final battle scene a little bit more unique, but I don't know. It didn't really make sense why the Ewe Tribe would want to reverse gravity in any way. I don't know if it helped them at all. They still caused destruction. So again, I don't really know what the purpose of that was. But that was just, again, one of the only cons that I had about this movie. Overall, like I mentioned, it is a fun time to go watch in the movie theaters. Don't expect this to be something that's going to blow you away. That's not what it's intended for. It is intended for you to just kind of keep your eyes on the screen, watch a bunch of destruction and explosion and all this chaos that ends up happening when you see monsters go up against each other. So if you enjoy those types of action movies, if you enjoy seeing these giant titans like Godzilla and King Kong face off against the Scar King, then this is definitely a movie for you. Go ahead and check it out in theaters. If you're more like on the fence of like, I don't know if I should watch it, you're not big into action, or if you don't really care about these films, definitely wait for streaming. Again, it's not that big of a deal. Feel free to just wait for this on streaming. Nothing too crazy that you have to go out to the theaters and watch it today. Just a nice little movie to kind of watch if there's nothing else that you kind of interest you in the theaters as well. All right, now that we kind of covered the overall thoughts, I want to dive into some of my favorite performances or favorite moments. Favorite performance, I got to go with Bernie, who was played by Brian Tyree Henry. In the first movie, he was hilarious. He was really the comic relief character. He would kind of talk fast. He was a smart one. He was an engineer, but he was also a conspiracy theorist. And so they bring him back and they bring that same energy. He gets to visit Hollow Earth and he just has some hilarious lines. He's recording. He's taking Polaroid pictures. He's just doing a lot of ridiculous stuff, but he's really like us, like the audience would be. Like if we were in that position of visiting this world or dimension that we've never been to, we'd probably be acting the same way. We'd be scared, we'd be excited, we'd be thrilled, and it's just all these different types of emotions that kind of go through, Bernie's head, and what he goes through in these situations is just ridiculous. But again, I thought he had a really great performance, and again, he just stood out to me. He was just talking fast. He was just trying to get a hold and just wrap his brain around what the hell he was noticing. Seeing these monsters fight, seeing the Ewe Tribe, trying to understand their language and their whole game plan. It was just a lot of funny stuff, but that was my favorite performance of the movie. It was Brian Tyree Henry as Bernie. All right, now my favorite scene or moment of the movie actually is going to go to when Kong fights the apes for the first time. So this kind of goes back to the beginning of the first act of the movie. What ends up happening is Kong is in Hollow Earth. He's trying to find more of his species, and he ends up finding them. But what he ends up noticing is that as he encounters these apes, they're so confused that King Kong is in Hollow Earth that they end up fighting. And what ends up happening is that he actually uses this little baby Kong. He's the first one that actually tries to fight him and get in his face. And what does Kong do? He actually gets the little baby ape, he drags him across the ground, and then he throws him towards the other apes. It was hilarious. It was such a funny scene because I did not expect him to actually ragdoll and use the little baby ape as a weapon. And it was just so out of the box and so out there, but I definitely enjoyed it. And it was the one moment that kind of just popped out for me of the entire movie. So again, well done to the team. That was just a funny scene in that fight between Kong and the different apes that came out as well. All right, everybody. Now that we've kind of talked through all those different types of details about Kong and Godzilla, A New Empire, I want to now decide whether this movie is timeless. For me, at this moment, Godzilla, King Kong, A New Empire is not a timeless movie. Again, this is not meant to be anything in regards to a negative for the movie. Again, the movie is fun. It's an enjoyable experience. But again, after watching it one time, I don't really need to see it again. There's just not much that kind of sticks out to me besides, again, one of my favorite scenes, which is when Kong fights the apes. Other than that, there's not really much that's there. Again, there's a couple of different areas where I didn't enjoy it, right? Different interactions that Kong has with apes, what Godzilla is doing throughout the movie to collect more power. And it did have, again, some funny lines, but it's not going to be like jokes that will make me laugh every single time I watch it. Again, it's not meant for that. Again, it's meant to just really be a huge blockbuster movie that shows craziness and destruction and shows you something that doesn't happen every day, right? Which is monsters and titans facing off in order to, again, protect us or destroy us in that kind of a way. So for me, it is, again, a fun experience. It's fun to watch it one time, but I'm not going to be, next year or 2 years from now saying like, yeah, I can't wait to watch this fight again between Godzilla, King Kong, and Scar King and Shimo. I can't wait to watch that. It just, again, doesn't call for me. These aren't my type of movies. I do enjoy the action genre, but again, this one's just really exaggerated, really over the top, a lot of chaos and destruction. One time is enough for me. However, guys, I want to hear from you. What did you think of Godzilla, King Kong, A New Empire? Did you like it? Did you think it was timeless? Well, let me know down below in the comments. I really want to hear your thoughts about this movie and see, again, where do we agree and where do we disagree? Just want to hear and interact with you guys as well. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 63 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week as we cover a new movie that we check out in theaters and discuss and decide whether it is timeless. All right, everybody. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your week.